I think we should update the PISTORM, and I need to do something about this cable. But that cable isn't the only problem that we need to solve, because in the UK here, over the last week or so, we have been having a bit of a heat wave, and specifically where I am in Belfast, temperatures are high 20s into the low 30s, and our little PISTORM is unfortunately throttling due to temperature. So I have the case just opened here at the minute, and I have a fan sitting off to the side there that we're going to be running while doing some tests on the PISTORM. I do have a bit of an idea of a long-term solution to help cool it. I have a couple of little heat sinks that we're going to put onto the Pi, and I think we're going to try and get a fan in here somewhere. In fact, the 3D printer is currently trying to spew something out for me, but just for now, I think it should be fine to test as it is. So as I said, the PISTORM has been updated, and with that we're almost doubling in performance. So what I want to do is just have a look at how it's performing at the minute before we update it. I'll also give you a quick look at what I've been doing with it since you last seen it. Then we'll update it and see exactly just how much faster it actually is. So please excuse the noise of the fan running in the background. It is absolutely roasting here in the man cave, so there's nothing we can do about it. I need that fan on to try and stop our little PISTORM from throttling. The Amiga is hooked up to the capture card on the PC, and the first thing I want to see is just how long does it actually take for this to boot into Workbench. And in fact, not only boot into Workbench, but also bring up my background in the RTG graphics. Some dead lines in my monitor. My old Dell Ultra Sharp looks like it's on the way out. Oh well, they do go away eventually once the monitor heats up. Right, where's my background? Come on. So I now have this running at 1280 by 720, 50 Hz, and doesn't it look absolutely awesome? But that boot time, that actually took a total of 48 seconds. Not exactly fast, but hopefully after the update it will get a bit quicker. And just before there's any chance of that Pi overheating, let's jump into sysinfo and run a quick benchmark. Now granted, this isn't the best benchmarking software out there, but everyone seems to use it, so we'll use it today. We're just going to compare its results now with its results after we get the Pi updated. And there we are, 14.82 MIPS. Now what I noticed the other day when the Pi was overheating and throttling, that would jump down to about 12. Checking the temperature on the Pi itself, it was sitting around 65 degrees or so. As I understand, the Pi starts to throttle at about 60. So 14.8 MIPS, what does that let us do in the land of Amiga? Quite a bit. So we do have just the random selection here of Amiga games, some of my favourites: Fighting Spirit, Formula 1 Grand Prix, Golden Axe, Frontier and Road Avenger. Out of those, Frontier and Formula 1 GP are 3D based, and as you would expect, the likes of Frontier here runs absolutely flawlessly. One game that unfortunately doesn't work though is Road Avenger. Now this game is FMV, so it hammers the hard drive quite a bit as it's constantly loading data off there, be it the FMV or the music. And as you can see and hear, it'll play a bit of FMV for a second, then it'll play the corresponding bit of music for that, then it goes back, plays another bit of FMV, then another bit of music. For whatever reason, the playback isn't smooth. Now, this is the OCS version of Avenger that I'm running here. And this version was designed to run on the CD32. Now, yes, I know that is an AGA console, but it was the OCS port designed for the CD32 to keep the color depth down, to keep the bitrate down, so you could run it from CD. The CD32 has a dual speed CD drive in it, so that's a maximum data transfer rate of 300k per second. The hard drive benchmark in sysinfo for the PISTORM is ridiculously fast, over 22 megabytes a second. So it's definitely not that that's causing the issue. Just be interesting to see after we update if this gets sorted out. But how about running something in our RTG mode? Well, our 14 MIPS, that also just about lets us play an MP3. This should look very familiar to anyone familiar with Winamp. This is the same thing, it's just Amiga amp. Perfectly smooth MP3 playback. Yes, the sample rate has to be turned down a wee bit to get that perfectly smooth, but nevertheless, very impressive to see the Amiga playing an MP3. We can even try to run one of the plugins, albeit that's when things start to slow down a bit. Well, slow down in terms of graphics anyway. The MP3 playback does remain nice and smooth. Now, I'm sure you've noticed these two icons up here, Doom and Scum VM. Both of these are the RTG versions. This is Doom Attack RTG. And we can run it full screen, albeit only 320 by 240, which is the native resolution of the game anyway. And as you can see, it runs absolutely fine. Well, more or less. There's the odd wee bit of slowdown, but still very impressive. Now that is the low detail quality in the graphics. If we change that to high, things do start to struggle a little bit. So it'll just be interesting to see after the update, after we get the speed boost, if it'll run smoothly in the high detail. And we can turn the screen size down a wee bit and it's fine at that. But of course, you want to play it full screen. Scum VM then. Probably the one most people would be more interested in seeing run. And I have two games in here, Flight of the Amazon Queen and The Curse of Monkey Island. Now, unfortunately, I can't get Amazon Queen to work. I don't really know why. It starts to load and then just hangs every single time. Curse of Monkey Island, on the other hand, it might work. It is a bit temperamental. No, it doesn't seem to have worked this time. It'll do that occasionally. It just dumps you back into Workbench, almost as if the system resets. Let's just try it again. And away it goes. Although the audio is a bit of a scratchy mess. And yeah, it's running, but it's running really, really slowly. Maybe after the update, if our PISTORM is almost doubled in speed, maybe this will be more playable. At the minute, it's just too slow. But regardless of that, it is still very impressive to see it even trying to run on the Amiga. Even if said Amiga has a Pi 3A doing the heavy lifting. So that's where I have got to so far with the PISTORM in my Amiga 500. Deadlines are away in the wee monitor. Once it's warmed up, they actually stay away. So it's just obviously a loose connection or something up here, but Yeah, that's off topic. Something to deal with another day. For now, it's all about Amiga, PISTORM. Let's get it updated. So I'm just getting ready to update the PISTORM here. But the first thing that we're doing is within WinSCP, we have connected to the Pi, and we're in the PISTORM directory. And all I'm doing is downloading my HDF files, that's my emulated hard drives, bringing those back down to this PC, along with our config file, the PISTORM.service file, and also this one here, which is our program file for the CPLD. As you well know, when it comes to Raspberry Pis and Linux for that matter, I'm not exactly an expert in it. Don't really know the first thing about it, if I'm being perfectly honest. But from what I understand, when we do pull the new version of the software down from GitHub and recompile it, that is going to completely wipe everything in this folder. So we're just making it back up so that it's very easy to restore what we need to. In fact, I don't actually think you would need to back up this file here, but let's just do it anyway. Okay, all that has finished copying. It's actually the next day now. It was getting kind of late last night, but let's get this PISTORM updated. So just in a command prompt here, we're going to connect to the Pi, and then referring to the notepad, that's the commands that we need to run. And the first one there just stops the PISTORM service. And this does take a minute. And there we are, finally. So we're just going to go into the PISTORM directory. And then from here, we'll just run the rest of these commands. Right, what's this saying? Error. Your local changes to the following files would be overwritten by a merge, default config, and that CPLD program. So I'm just going to connect to the Pi here and WinSCP again. And because I have backed those two files up to the PC, I'm just going to delete them here. Right, let's try that again. Okay, then it's make clean, then make. Oh, I didn't type sudo before then, but it seems to be working anyway. Maybe not. Sudo make. And then just before we run the last command, which flashes the CPLD, I just want to have a quick look in WinSCP again. It has recreated our CPLD file here, so we don't need the old one. Let's just get rid of that. But it doesn't seem to have deleted the hard files or the kickstart run. Our PISTORM service, is it gone? No, it's still there. Right, anyway. Sudo /flash.sh. Flashing successful, and that should be it. That is our PISTORM updated. But if we just jump back into WinSCP again and open that default configuration for editing, this is now back to its default configuration, so we do need to change a few things in here. CPU type 030. RTG, we need that. We're going to use PySCSI and the two of those. Now, what did I call them? Hard file 39 and files. I do have another one that I only enable when I need to transfer stuff back and forward. And that hard file is only 512 meg. It's just easier moving that back and forward rather than moving the 4 gig of the files, HDF. We do now get a 314 emulation, although I'm not going to use that today. I need to do a bit more reading into that. And I think that's us. No, it's not. The kickstart. It's kick31.rom. That's it. Permission denied. Probably something glaringly obvious, but as I say, I don't really know the first thing about Pis. So let's just do this a different way. So we're just going to edit that config file over SSH instead. So into the PISTORM directory, then sudo nano default.cfg. Okay, let's see how much of a performance boost we're getting with this. Starting with that boot time. 37 seconds. That's a whole 11 seconds faster. Quite the increase in boot time. So on top of my 2 HDFs, we also have this one, PISTORM. And this just has some bits and pieces in it for the Pi. Albeit we're not going to be looking too closely into this today. Because, well, I need to figure out better what all this does. And specifically the A314, which I definitely want to look into in a bit more detail. But one thing we can do just quickly, this file here, if we run that, this is our PISTORM interaction tool. PISTORM found. Just pretty cool that you can talk to the Pi through the Amiga. And in fact, if I do spend the time to set this up properly, you can access the command line of the Pi from within the Amiga as well. That would be pretty cool to do, but that's for another time. Let's see what sort of performance boost we are getting. That's quite nice, isn't it? When it's changing out of RTG mode, it gives you that screen now. RTG is currently sleeping. So it was 14.8 MIPS before, and now 23.77. That is pretty good. M-flops is up as well to 10. Drystone's 22,775. 1.24 times the speed of an A4000 with an 040 at 25 megahertz. So quite a jump in performance there, but will that carry through to some of our games? What about the likes of Road Avenger? Is it still going to have its issue? And yes, it does. Just find this really weird. I think I'm going to go and ask the question on the PISTORM Discord about this to see if anyone else has this issue as well. But what about Doom? Will the increase in performance allow us to play it full screen with the high detail? Hey, check that out. So previously, the image here was stretched in the RTG to fill the screen 16:9, but that to me looks like the correct aspect ratio. That's pretty cool. So just in the low detail settings here, full screen, and it's fine as it was previously. But what about the high detail? Yeah, seems pretty good to me. That's running perfectly. Should we push our luck and try Scum VM? Again, there's a definite change here to the resolution. It was stretched to full screen before, but it's not now. Just judging by how slow this was previously, I'm not convinced our speed increase is going to miraculously solve this, but you never know. Yeah, still crawling along at a snail's pace. Maybe slightly faster, but completely unplayable. Well, that is a bit of a shame. Curse of Monkey Island, just too much for it. I suppose I maybe was asking a bit much trying to get that game to work. The likes of Amazon Queen probably would run okay if I could get the game to start. Or the likes of Sam & Max, something like that. It's probably that sort of era of game would be perfect to run on the PISTORM. What about an MP3? Now, last time this played back fine, as it is doing again, but I'm just wondering about our little plugin. What's that going to be like? Yeah, it's very close, certainly a lot better, just not 100% of the way there yet. I just think it's great you can play MP3s on the Amiga. I'm not too worried about the plugins, to be perfectly honest. The likes of Frontier, that did run fine last time, and it is going to run fine again. Although last time you might have noticed just at the top of the Frontier logo there was a little bit of flickering, and that is now gone. Very cool. So it's been running here for about 10 minutes or so. Let's just see if there's any effect in performance. It is quite warm in here again this evening. Just want to see if this thing has started throttling yet. And yes, it obviously has, because that performance was 23, it's now down to 20. And in fact, if we just open command prompt here and connect to the Pi, and then if we run this, (61.2), 60 itself is where it starts to throttle. So yeah, we definitely need to do something about the heat. So our processor then, that is what is getting so hot. And I have a little bag of heat sinks. So we'll stick that one on there like that. Another large component here, so I think we will stick another one to it. The kit does come with these smaller heat sinks as well, but I don't really see anywhere on here to put them. They must be for one of the other models of Raspberry Pi. But you'll also notice this wire now sticking out of the Amiga. And on the underside of the board, I have soldered this onto the plus 12 volt and ground. Because to try and help with the heat, I've printed out these. Now this is going to be a replacement cover for the trapdoor on the side, and it's got this vent in it. So that's going to go in there like that. And then this, with this very small 12 volt fan, is going to be mounted in there. I'm just going to hold it in place with a bit of double-sided sticky tape. To be perfectly honest, the profile of this here, the bottom of it, needs to be redone. It's not great at the minute. So when I'm redoing that, I'll try and come up with some method of clipping this into place rather than having to use double-sided sticky tape, but that'll do for now. So it's a bit crude, but it should be enough to hold it. I could make my wire a bit shorter as well, couldn't I? Try and lose that up the side of the shield, the RF shield. You know, I hope all this fits underneath the keyboard and the case closes. Yeah, that's going to close fine. But just before we do close this up, we have one other problem to solve, and that is the HDMI cable. Rather than having that big horrible nasty cable sticking out the side, I bought one of these. So this is just a flat ribbon, HDMI to HDMI. But the beauty about this is that you can disconnect the ribbon on one side. And then when we have that disconnected, well, just let me plug in this side first. But the idea being that, see these grills on the back? We can thread the ribbon through that, and then using this, also printed out, we can mount this in here. There's a little plastic clip to help hold everything in place. And this, with a bit of persuasion, should clip onto the back of the case. I was wondering why the case wouldn't close on this side, and it was actually the heatsink that I had put on the top of the Pi. This one here, it was hitting the keyboard and keeping the keyboard up, stopping the case from going into place. So I took that off and just fitted one of those small ones instead. That gives just about enough clearance for the keyboard. So we've got our new door on the side with this little louver, and the fan is in behind that. And then we've got our HDMI connection up here now. That little fan is actually quite noisy, which is a bit disappointing. I'll maybe look at getting something slightly quieter. But I even just want to see if it's enough to get the heat away. You can just about feel a little bit of air movement out of the vents on the side now. But let's run the Amiga for 15 minutes, say, and then check what temperature that Raspberry Pi is sitting at. Right, the Pi's been running for about 15 minutes or so. Had a quick game of Doom on it. Plays fine. So let's connect to it here. And let's see what temperature it's sitting at. Still above 60 degrees. So the heatsink did nothing, and equally the little fan, all that's doing is making a lot of noise. It is absolutely roasting in here though, but still, regardless of that, we should be able to get that temperature below 60. So I think the problem with the Wii fan is that it's exactly that. It's too small, just cannot move enough air. So I had a hook about the cave, and the only thing I could find is this. This is a fan that I've taken off an old GPU. It's not exactly ideal, but I mean, it's stuck there to the side of the Hdmi socket and hopefully won't fall off. But more importantly, this time when it's powered up, there is quite a bit of air movement coming from it there. So I'll button the machine up again, leave it running for another 10-15 minutes, and then we'll check the temperatures. Hopefully this time it'll stay below 60. Okay, it's been running for about 20 minutes actually. I just had the Frontier demo on loop in the background while I was doing a bit of editing. So let's see what the temperature is like. Please be under 60. Oh yes. Oh yes, that has solved our problem. 45.1 degrees C. That is well and truly under 60. So that's all it needed. The bigger fan moving more air. Problem solved. Well, that's the PISTORM updated as of 25th of July 2021. And the reason I throw the date in there is because the PISTORM is very much a work in progress. Now that's not to take away from the work that has been done to date. It is an absolutely fantastic piece of kit. And it's great that the community has come together to develop this bargain basement accelerator for our Amiga 500s that, let's be honest, mops the floor with any accelerator 10 times its price. And considering how far the PISTORM has come even in the last month, well, I personally think that we're still a long way to go to unleash the full potential of a Raspberry Pi integrated into our Commodore Amigas. But that's it for this time, so if you enjoyed the video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. Why not hit subscribe if you haven't done so already? Still plenty more yet to come here on CRG, and I'll see you next time.